Hi, I'm Ashley, and today I'm going to show you how to make this crocheted Indianapolis Colts logo. Now, I developed this logo because somebody asked for it in the comments of one of my other videos. So if you have a specific team that you are interested in seeing a crocheted logo, let me know and maybe I can do it in the future as well. So let's get into how to crochet the Indianapolis Colts logo. As far as the materials for the Colts logo, the first thing that you're going to need is the crochet pattern or the crochet chart. So the written pattern is available on my website, Crafty with Ashley. It's linked below. And the chart is also available there as a PDF download. And then you'll need a size G or 4.25 millimeter crochet hook. That can be altered depending on, your finished size that you want. If you want it a little looser and bigger, use a bigger hook. If you want it even tighter, use a smaller hook. And then you'll need your yarn, and it's, less than 6 ounces of each, but I just have this light gray, and I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby. It's an acrylic yarn. I really like it. It's nice and soft and easy to work with. So light gray, and then the blue, and I'm using this like dusty blue color. I can't remember what it's called, but choose whichever blue you feel is most representative of the Colts. And then scissors to cut the yarn, yarn needle to weave in the ends. I don't know if I already said that, but anyway, yarn needle to weave in the ends. All right, so we're gonna start by taking our first color. So I'm gonna do the border or the outside in the light gray and then the horseshoe in the blue. And I'm gonna start by doing my foundation chain. So if you don't know what some of these are, or how to do them, I do have a whole playlist about crochet stitches and crochet terminology that you can use for your reference. So when you're crocheting off of the chart like this, I have the numbers here, so I know it's 23 across, and these are all going to be single crochets throughout the whole pattern. It's just single crochets with color changing to get the pattern. So when we do this, we have 23 single crochets are going to be needed in row 1. So for my foundation chain, I just chain 23 plus 1 for the turning chain on the foundation here. So I'm going to chain 24. And then when I get to the end of my turning chain, I'm going to turn, or my foundation chain, I'm going to turn and I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And then in each chain across to get to 23. (21), 22, 23. All right, so that was row 1, which is just 23 single crochets in light gray. Now I'm going to turn and I'm going to work row 2. So another thing to note when working off a grid like this or a chart, all of the odd rows 1, 3, 5, 7 are going to be worked from right to left, and all of the even rows 2, 4, 6, 8 are going to be worked from left to right. Now this pattern, it's not going to matter that much because it is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter as much because it's the same whether you're looking at it from right to left or left to right. But on asymmetrical pattern, it's going to matter more. So just know, odd right to left, even left to right. If you are left-handed, then it'd be flip-flopped. So now I'm going to turn, and when I do a turn with single crochet, I don't do any turning chains. I just pull up my final loop just a little bit looser and then turn and just continue. I'm also going to crochet over this end so that I don't have to weave it in later. And throughout the rest of this, when we're carrying the colors along, we're going to be crocheting over strands of yarn. So this is kind of a good place to explain that. So I just turn, and then this strand, I'm going to bring it up and line it up just with the top of my stitches so that when I insert my hook, I'm going underneath it. And then when I finish the single crochet, I'll be over it. So again, I'm just going to single crochet in each across. So I'm inserting my hook. I'm going under this extra end here, crochet, yarn over, pull through just like I would. And then right here, now I'm over it to finish the single crochet. and that's just going to hide that end so that I don't have to weave it in later. And when you're doing the color changing in these patterns, you're going to be carrying yarn along with you in this exact same way, with just keeping it right there against the stitch and working your stitches like normal with that inside of your stitch, so that then you don't have to cut and reattach every time you change colors, because you're changing colors so frequently in these types of like mosaic type patterns that you're using the color to create a shape. My hands are really cold right now, so I feel like clumsy trying to do this. It's definitely easier with warmer hands. So now I'm going to turn and I'm going to work row 3 from right to left, and this is where we're going to introduce our second color. So same thing with the turn, just pull up the loop a little extra, go straight into that final stitch of the previous row to do stitch 1. And I'm just counting the boxes here. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 single crochets in gray. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then on the 9th, when we change colors, we start that single crochet. So this is single crochet number 9. I start it by inserting the hook, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and then to get the color change, I take color B, which for me is this blue color, and I just pull that up to finish the stitch. After I do that, I tighten the gray to get the tension on that bottom loop appropriate. And then I'm gonna take both the yarn that I just attached, so this tail, and this gray yarn, and I'm gonna hold it against the stitch and just work over them. And now I'm gonna do 5 single crochets in blue. So 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 5th, I start it, insert hook, drop a loop, and then I finish it with the gray. So I just grabbed the gray and pulled up the final loop with gray, and then I drop the blue yarn, pick up the gray, and now the gray is my working strand, and I'm carrying the blue along. Okay. Now I'm going to do 9 single crochets in gray to finish off this row. So there's the first row of our color changing. Now I'm going to turn and work row 4. And so we start with 7 single crochets in blue. When I turn, I'm going to ignore this little extra tail right now. I'll trim it later. But when I turn, I just take the blue yarn that I'm carrying along around the back and make sure that this first stitch, I'm underneath that blue yarn, and then just work over it like I did the previous row. 4, 5, 6, and then on the 7th I'm going to change, so I'm just going to pull the blue yarn, make sure my tension is good before I change colors here. So this is number 7, switching to blue. And then I do 4 single crochets in blue. Switching on the 4th to the gray. Okay, so finishing that stitch off with the gray. and then I just have one gray here. So it's gonna feel weird, but you're gonna start it with the gray and then switch right back to the blue. And it feels weird because it's like I didn't even do a whole stitch in the gray, but it works the best in terms of the color changing to do it that way. 4 more in blue, switch back, finish off with 7 single crochets in gray. Okay, and then we are on row 5. So I'm turning and I'm gonna do 6 single crochets in gray, making sure again I'm carrying that blue yarn along. On the 6th, switching to blue. And I have 11 single crochets in blue. Ten, 11, switching back to gray, and then doing 6 single crochets in gray. Okay. Now, one other thing to note when you're doing these patterns is that your yarn will start to get like twisted with each other because you're constantly dropping it and picking up in the same direction, so it just spirals around itself. So periodically I just take out my hook and then untwist those yarns so that my tension stays consistent and I don't end up with knots where it's awkward or hard to keep pulling my yarn. So then I just put my hook back in and turn and continue. So that was row 5. Now I'm on row 6. Again, even, so it's left to right. Then I'm going to start with 5 single crochets in gray. Switching to blue. And then I just do 1 blue. So again, just start it in blue, end it in gray, 1 gray. Oops. Start it in gray, end it in blue, 1 blue. Switch back. 7 gray. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, switching to blue, and then I do that again where I have 1 blue, 1 gray, 1 blue. And then finish with 5 gray. So I'm just going to continue doing this same thing all the way up, and then I'll pick it back up on the video when I get to the final row of color changing and show you how I finish off the color changing. All right, here I am starting row 22 now, and I'm just going to follow my chart. So crocheting 4 in gray, switching to blue, stop moving, 3 in blue, switch to gray, 9 in gray, switching to blue, 3 in blue, switch to gray, and finish off the row in gray. And that was my last color change. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to carry the blue along for the next row so that I don't have to weave in the end after. So I'm just going to do exactly the same thing with my turn here. Carry that blue along and do one more row, all single crochet in gray, but covering the blue here so that I don't have to go back and weave in an end later. Now, if you prefer to weave in the end, that's fine. I just don't like to. So I just carry it along for one more row. If the color change was toward the beginning of the row instead of, you know, finishing at the end, maybe just that one row would be enough to secure that end. But since I only had 4 stitches after that color change, that to me isn't enough to really secure that end. So I'm just going back one more row. Okay, now here I'm just going to drop the blue and finish my final row, row number 24, in gray without carrying the blue along. 21, 22, and 23. And that's the end of my pattern. So now I'm going to come back and cut my yarn. So I'm just going to cut a decent tail here to weave in, and then just pull up one more loop to fasten off. Okay, and then this one I can just kind of add a little bit of tension, trim it. Okay, and then I just need to come back here to where I had this woven in tail so that it's not just sticking out on the ends. Just trim those. Okay, now I'm going to take a yarn needle to weave in the end of my final row here. Okay, and I prefer to use a yarn needle just because I find that it's a lot faster for me. But if you prefer to use a crochet hook to weave in your ends, go for it, however you prefer. And I've looked up and tried to find if there's like a right or a wrong way to weave in ends, and the answer is no, there's not right and wrong. As long as you're going through multiple stitches and getting it secure, there's not a right and wrong way. So I prefer to just go kind of one way on one row, go down to the next row, and then go back the other way in the next row. But that's just my technique. I find it to be quickest and easiest. And again, by using the yarn needle, it's super, super fast for me. And then just cut off the extra. And we have our final crocheted logo. All right, so here it is again, that finished Indianapolis Colts logo. I really like these crocheted logo like little motifs because you can use it as like a pot holder or attach it to the end of a scarf, incorporate it into a blanket. Lots of different uses for this to be used in larger patterns or just as is. So I think it's really special to be able to personalize something that you've made for yourself or for somebody that you love. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like, comment on it, and check out my channel for tons more crochet content. Have an awesome day.